Welcome back. You're watching Overdrive. Now, earlier this year, Suzuki launched the V-Strom 800DE with the aim of adding a dash of adventure to your daily commutes. So, we decided to find out just how much fun it actually is to ride on a daily basis.
Earlier this year, Suzuki showed us that they were getting a lot more serious with their mid-capacity adventure motorcycles with the launch of the V-Strom 800DE. Now, this motorcycle, of course, is priced at 10 lakh 30,000 rupees, and it is of course the successor to the V-Strom 650 XT, which was already sold out here in the country a couple of years ago. Now, obviously, this motorcycle has evolved and improved over that motorcycle in terms of features and capability. Elsewhere abroad, you do have the option of getting your hands on the standard version of this motorcycle, which is the V-Strom 800 standard, but that is a more road-focused motorcycle, and Suzuki have chosen not to give us that one, but the more off-road centric 800DE version. The V-Strom 800DE looks brilliant in this outstanding yellow color. It's got all the definitive cuts, creases and design cues that visually sync it in line nicely with the rest of the latest gen V-Strom bikes. There's an undeniable mass up front with all those plastic panels, but it gives the motorcycle a visual sturdiness that still manages to be easy on the eye. Now, the V-Strom 800DE, obviously it does look very big and bulky, and that mostly has to do with the big 20-litre tank up front. So it's not as slender as something like the Transalp. And once you actually get on the bike, well, it still does feel a little imposing, and it will take a little more time to get used to because of the size and the weight. And it does feel a little top heavy in comparison to the Honda. It doesn't feel as balanced, and obviously because of that weight it will take a little more muscling to get around, especially off-road. Now, once you get astride, because of the shape of the seat, you'll feel like you're seated within the V-Strom 800DE rather than just on it, and that's not a bad feeling, to be honest. But it also tells you that this motorcycle was designed to be comfortable over long rides and in the city rather than set up for some hardcore off-road grinds in the stock setup. Now, the parallel twin engine out here is the same 776cc liquid-cooled unit that powers other street bikes around the world, at least the modern day Suzukis. Now, yes, the 83 PS of max power might seem a bit modest on paper compared to something like the 92 PS of max power that the Honda Transalp produces, but then again, this engine still is a load of fun out on the road, and that's because it makes around 78 Nm of max torque, and it is available very low down the power band. On road, it may lack a powerful top-end whack of something like the Transalp, but that's just because the Honda motor feels so relentless in its power delivery higher up the power band. Because, well, that's the way it's configured. There's a good amount of power in the Suzuki motor too, just that you'll have to really ring it to catch up to the Honda if the two of you are in a sprint race out on the road. Off-road though, things will be very different. The Suzuki motor has more grunt on offer, and the electronics manage it all very well. Speaking of off-road scenarios, what deserves a mention is this bike suspension setup, because it isn't often that you see a completely adjustable upside down fork and rear monoshock on a stock medium capacity motorcycle. There's quite a good amount of stock crash protection on there as well. Some really nice bits about the V-Strom 800DE are the fact that you do get a good amount of features in terms of guards. Now, you have crash guards in the form of the knuckle guards and that bash plate, although it's plastic. Well, something's better than nothing, right? And of course, you do get this small fly screen up front, which is adjustable, but then again, you will have to use the Allen keys to actually adjust it the way you like. The suspension weighs up brilliantly out on the road, and you can set it up the way you want off-road too, which is great. But the Dunlop tires on there are a big letdown on this bike. Now, I felt that the stock Honda Transalp, which has the same tires, is a motorcycle that is set up more for road usage rather than actual off-road rough stuff. And the V-Strom 800DE doesn't do the exact opposite. Just that it doesn't feel as punchy out on the highway, but it feels more capable off-road. And these tires though, off-road at least, over the relatively light, mushy stuff that I subjected it to today, were a big disappointment. Not very point your toes and go. It's got a nice narrow midsection which allows you to stand up and get a good grip and feel of things. And the handlebar is nice and wide, which gives you a good amount of leverage. And the engine as well, enough grunt to get you out of sticky situations. But the V-Strom, well, it still feels top heavy, which can be tricky when things go awry off-road. So in terms of ride features, you do get a decent amount of them because you have 5 levels of traction control, you have 3 ride modes which alter the way the power is delivered to the rear wheel, and you also have switchable ABS, which is great for when you're hitting those off-road trails. So as an off-road centric motorcycle, it's got just about enough of what you actually need in terms of usability. Overall, the V-Strom 800DE is a lovely machine that's built to take on all kinds of riding scenarios. It's just that when you're on the road, you'll find that it disguises its weight rather well and feels effortless to ride. When you're off the beaten path though, there will be times when it will require you to put some muscle into it. Now on its own, the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE is a very well put together motorcycle considering that it is a lot more off-road biased. So in terms of suspension, the comfort levels, the ride and everything, even the features, it really syncs together quite well. But then again, it is slightly on the heavier side. So larger riders will really fancy this one a lot more. And once you get used to the weight and you're more in tune with off-road riding, you will really fancy this one with the amount of torque that this delivers. Now, of course, it is around half a lakh cheaper than something like the Honda XL750 Transalp, but that motorcycle comes with a lot more features. It is the more rider-friendly and more road-friendly as well of the two. But then again, this one, anything away from this engine because it is a real hoot. It doesn't shy away from any excitement, and you will have a lot of fun in this one as well.
With that, it's a wrap on this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through our various social media platforms, and you can drop us a comment on YouTube as well. We'll see you next week. Until then, drive and ride safe.